Hi guys, welcome to today's video. In today's video, we'll look into a scenario in which Russia goes to war with all of its neighbors. And I added Moldova just because they simply occupied the land, technically. Sounds like a very inconvenient area to occupy, though. They don't occupy much. Now, I think this isn't a very good for them. They lose North Korea's ammo. Yes, imagine using North Korean troops, out of all the troops. If that's the case, they're probably using it for, mine clearing operations. Just ask another country, hey, country, can we steal some of your people? Just throw at the mines? The TNT? Well, Poland is like, nope, Belarus. Yes, let's see what Belarus does. Nothing. You know why? Because they can't do anything. As they get invaded. But I'm also launching a big invasion in the Baltics. And this goes pretty well because Poland isn't strong enough to hold them out of all these territories. As they manage to move in and take Vilnius. And they also take over Moldova and move into this part of Ukraine as they head towards Odessa. These lands eventually being taken over. With this becoming the front line, Ukraine quickly moves troops there. With more fronts moving, because they're actually bringing enough troops in. Because right now in the Ukraine war, if they brought in all of their troops, it would be a different story. Because even when they started, they didn't send enough forces. That's delusional planning at best. With them quickly moving in and taking over Georgia. And they move into Azerbaijan. As they move in to take Astana to neutralize this area as they take the capital. With them neutralizing Kazakhstan and then to keep them away from any major cities. They push them back all the way to here. With China mobilizing, yeah, that's not going to end well. With the front line becoming solid in this area, it looks like a breakthrough is inevitable in that area near Vladivostok. With them going to war with Finland, and no, it's not winter, so they actually have fun. With them moving into Norway's mountains. Which they eventually at this point move down here. And with this, they set up a naval blockade. Yes, blockade. But we'll call it blockade because it sounds worse. With them moving into Norway quite significantly. But they get stuck there. With them breaking through in the Ukrainian front line. With them managing to move in from Belarus. In from the north. As the collapse of Belarus is inevitable, and they cross a bit more into Poland. With a lot of troops being moved into this area, and a lot of people are wondering why, you might say. Why would they move a lot there? As these forces manage to move in and take Odessa, but then they make an offensive over here, which they cut off Ukraine from Poland. With an offensive by China being launched. And they launch it over here. The beginning of their offensive starts over here with them launching an invasion towards here. Well, then they move this into the southern area where Vladivostok is. Vladivostok. With China's army managing to take all of this over. With us being significant amounts of land, but yet so valueless. And then they take over this island. But as this happens, at this point they decide to keep moving in. And at this point they manage to make an encirclement to Kiev and take the city. Which really showcases the end. as they're trying to finish off this front as quick as they can. With them managing to move in and take over the rest of Moldova at this point. And at this point, let's do this with their occupied lands. Because of course, this is what the countries they fully occupy. The 3 Baltic states, Georgia, Azerbaijan, and Moldova. With Poland launching an offensive. With them moving to here, which leads to this area being withdrawn from. And they push them back to Moldova's border. And after this, they try to do something, but in the east, Ukraine's being pushed back. So they decide to push Russia back to the Dnieper River. But they fail to, as the front line becomes like this. With them starting to advance towards Mykolaiv, that's how I think it's said, and Kherson, with them managing to cross the Dnieper here and cut across. Well, this becomes the front line in Ukraine, as they're still holding lands. With China launching an offensive from Mongolia. And they continue in further as they take more land over. They continue in. And they also launch a front here. As in Kazakhstan, the front is solid. With them unable to advance through Norway as it's so narrow, gives them a disadvantage. And while Russia starts pushing into northern Finland, with Poland losing a bit more land in the north. But with stalemate falling over in some of these fronts, they decide to start moving in this front. But with China managing to mount an army with the help of North Korea and Mongolia and Kazakhstan, they start pushing Russia back. As Russia is completely humiliated in northern Kazakhstan and this part of Kazakhstan, with an offensive north to try to stop Russia before they actually destroy it. With it being occupied like this. With some troops having to be moved. Which leads to a Finnish and Norwegian counteroffensive, which completely pushes Russia back. And while over here, they start pushing Russia back. And at this point in northern Finland, the front collapses, followed by in southern Finland, with them being pushed back and completely humiliated. With Poland pushing them out. And then in Ukraine, they start getting pushed back. With rebels becoming increasingly likely to rise up. With them getting pushed back. With all the occupation zones going back to being this color, just because they're being pushed back from all of it. In the Belarus is where they first get pushed out. With them getting pushed out of the southern part. And in the Moldova, with Ukraine trying to get to the coast. With them managing to get to the coast. With China starting another offensive, which is moving in on Vladivostok. No, Volgorod. With them taking Volgorod and then occupying huge lands in the Caucasus region. With China being the big leader of all of this. And at this point, China decides to start a Siberia campaign. With them advancing to Lake here pretty quick as they advance to this front. with them advancing rapidly on the Siberian front, and then moving north to cut them off from all of the Pacific waters. And then they pushed them out towards the Bering Sea, or Bering Strait. With them continuing to advance here, and at this point a huge humiliation happens as they get completely kicked out of here. With angry people within Russia revolting. I'm not knowing where they're getting funded by. With them starting in the north and across a few areas, being really angry about what's going on. As they quickly managed to create the Russian People's Republic, yes, sponsored by China. But at this point, total chaos comes out in Russia, which leads to them losing control of all of their occupation areas. And these occupied areas managed to re-liberate themselves. Yes, are basically the Yugoslavia of this war. Not sure how a peace treaty would go for this, though. As they move in and cut this area off, taking Karelia, with rebels rising up in this area. As this nation seizes Moscow and decides to negotiate a way out. Of them getting out of this war, with them quickly moving across the country. With what's left of the loyalists collapsing. And they managed to negotiate a withdrawal out of this area. Why? As they're negotiating peace to have more access to the coast. So let's see the peace treaty. It's only a mild one. China gained a bit of land into outer Manchuria. Mongolia gained some northern lands. Kazakhstan gained a bit of land. Georgia and Azerbaijan took over the southern Caucasus completely, basically. Ukraine took a bunch of land around the Sea of Azov. Belarus gained a bit of land. Kaliningrad was split. Latvia and Lithuania gained a bit of land, and so is Finland. The lighter blue, well, that is the occupied zone, and then the green is a demilitarized zone, and the pink is the government that's new. Eventually, it'll become like this. But as for now, the occupation zones and stuff exists. With the enemy of this video becoming very weak. I wouldn't be surprised if it collapsed and then became like this. Well, that's all for today's video. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Wild Mapper out, and on to subscribe. Bye!